Hello everyone and welcome to this video. We're talking about sailing again, and specifically we're going to talk and look at making sailing in Stormworks more realistic. Now here you could see 3 of my vessels. 2 of them are currently out and the little catboat is currently in progress of being released, but I've really found that I enjoy sailing in Stormworks. Now there are a lot of diehard fans of sailing, sailors if you will, who prefer a more realistic approach, more realistic rigging, more realistic cables and winches and all kinds of stuff. For me, this is like an abbreviated, simulated way of sailing versus simulation. So that difference is sort of the basis of this video, but we will look at the various components into making a more realistic sailboat, specifically one that has a jib sail and a mainsail like this. Pardon me not knowing all the terminology. I am landlocked, as I mentioned, and I am trying my best. And hopefully I can just get some kudos from people who are sailors for me just trying to bring some, call it respect and knowledge to those who are not possibly sailors. So that is my goal. When I make these vessels, I have more vessels planned, more sailing boats planned, but my goal isn't to be a master sailor, it's to find a way to adapt Stormworks and make it fun to sail without being overly realistic and complicated. Where we're going to be taking this sailboat that has some sort of unrealistic leaps of logic and converting it into a realistic sailing experience. Now again, disclaimer, I am not a sailor, I don't know how to sail, but I did watch enough resources and do a lot of research actually, because I find this absolutely fascinating. And I've come to the conclusion that the vessels that I made, while I do like them and I most likely won't change them, they do make some interesting leaps of logic. You don't necessarily have the jib sail on a track such as this, and along with other sort of situations, including these handles that power the generators that will control it. It is sort of a stylized approach to what I like to think is semi-realistic as far as Stormworks goes, and a lot of people that enjoy my vehicles have actually commented positive things. Now, of course, there are some of you that are experts in sailing and that are very knowledgeable about this. I'm not one of those people, but that commented and gave me resources such that I can learn and appreciate the actual art of sailing. So we're going to be doing that here. Please pardon my lack of sailing terminology. I don't know the various components and their proper names, but I do enjoy mechanisms and mechanical things and have learned somewhat of their systems. A fantastic resource is this video by Deco Fox, and clearly he has a lot of experience with sailing and with this sort of thing, down to the terminology. So this video is fantastic to watch if you haven't already, to learn how sailing works. And this video is a more advanced version of what I'm attempting here. So I highly recommend this video. It is an awesome resource to have. Another comment that I received on my video was by user Opiex, and you could see that the comment sort of explains how to attach various winches and things to make a more realistic experience. Right away, we should note that this is going to take a lot of winches. So where we previously used things like pivots and these different types of sliders, you can use a lot of different winches. So what I'm going to do is actually delete all of these mechanisms because they're not tuned to what I'm trying to do here. With all this gone, and we just have now our main mast there, and of course they have these connections which I'll leave for now, but we'll see if we want to make that stay or go. I'll even remove that one. So we're down to the basics. Now there's a few winches required. One is a winch on the back of the boat or somewhere here that is actually attached to this main boom or arm, or beam or whatever you want to call this. Again, not in a sailing terminology here. We're just kind of sticking to layman's terms, but I think it is called a boom. So what I'm going to do is put on a pivot. Now this is a normal pivot, not a mechanical pivot. So that would be able to go there. But instead of that, what I'm actually going to do is have a compact velocity pivot that has no electricity going to it. So this allows it actually to spin freely. Now, that may be to my own detriment if it ends up spinning around and starts facing forward. But I'm going to hope that with the use of a winch in this area here, we can prevent something like that from happening. So I am going to cut a hole here in the boat and I'll add a winch. Now I'm going to stick with the small winches. We don't really need anything bigger than that, I presume. And what I can even do here is add a instrument panel. Now I'm going to use kind of a preset series of things such that I can just copy and paste these. Now that winch should actually function properly because it is sealed by the by this hopper, and I could change the color of it. But anyway, that is there, and what I will do in this is have the buttons up and down to signify to me, to signal to me whether I'm pulling my winch in or pulling it out. I've gone ahead and connected this winch with this instrument panel box, and what that would do now is gives us a starting point for how to operate this boom here. Now, one thing that I will do is add a cable or rope anchor right here, and that is going to be attached to this winch there. One thing that I did like that I'm going to use here is DecoFox actually did use a fixed sail here on this portion and then had a part that moves up and down the mast. So I'm going to actually use that type of approach because I think it's a clean example, especially a little more realistic as you pull up the pull this part up here. Again, I don't know the terminology behind it, but as you pull this up, it will set the sails open and will give you that large surface area. So I just have to be careful what I have attached to there and to not necessarily delete it. And if I do delete it, at least to make note that I deleted it so it's not missing. But we'll go with this for now. And what I will do is use this sort of track setup. Now, I do want to make it start on the bottom and make its way up. So we can do something like this all the way down to there. And this one is the one that actually has the mechanism that moves up or down. What's really cool is if you don't put power to them, the blocks will actually drop. So that means that I could put a winch at the top of this and have the sail be extended even manually. So rather than even using a pivot at all, we're purely using winches. And because the exercise is to make this as realistic as possible, I will say that it is worth it. So let's put a little winch up here, and this is what's going to enable the sail to pretty much draw out or extend. Now I can do something like this, and I'll even put another piece there. Have that, and then we do need to have that rope point. So actually let's do this and another anchor with the rope anchor, and that will be attached to this top winch that will allow us to raise it or drop it as needed. Now, as far as these things are concerned, I will connect 4 of them, and that gives us our basic sail. And what I'm going to do is have another instrument panel here, and this will be the winch up and winch down. and I may change the labels afterwards, but pretty much it will allow me to control whether I take the sail up or down. So we'll set it like this. So how this will look like in the game, I winch this up and you could see that it's making its way up there. Now it does seem a little pinched here, so I think giving it a little more space would be better. But in essence, that is the idea there. And here, you can see that we can tighten this or give it some slack. And with slack, it should be able to kind of move around a little more freely, especially like that. So you knock it kind of like out of the way and, well, it's moving freely. And then you bring it in and it kind of stays taut to this location here. Now, the main sail isn't that difficult. I mean, it's pretty straightforward even, because these are the main components to it. Like I said, there's a couple little elements that maybe I'd like to change around, such as moving this outwards and pushing that in. Actually, there's a piece right there that I can't do that to, but I suppose I can move this up there and then attach this to this one, and then just have a regular block hanging out right there. In this case now, that should give us a little bit better of a sail, I presume, and then it's not as pinched, so we'll attach that to there and there. And the rope up there, I turned the winch up, made it a little faster. So anyway, now to the jib sail. That's where it gets a little more complex, because now with the jib sail we actually do have to put a couple more winches. In fact, 3 more if I'm not mistaken. So we'll start it off, and I'm gonna just grab the small winch there and we'll put it here somewhere on the side, probably right there, and that will control the winch, control the jib going from side to side. And then I will need another winch here in the front. So here where I have my anchor, probably will want to push this out of the way for now, something like that. Now this towing point we'll get rid of, and what we'll do is we'll kind of have a nice little pointy bow there, and we could add another rope anchor here for towing if we want. But let's try this. Actually, I may be proven wrong. I think we will need this space for the sails. So this jib sail will be attached to a few points here, and this is now where I'm trying to sort of start to use my brain, because in a real-life sailboat, my understanding is that it does not have a fixed boom or arm, but rather the jib sail kind of floats around in midair with a bunch of wires and a bunch of things here, not fixed. So for this, I think we will need to have a few things. First, the jib sail has to be connected up here as we have this, so I can actually extend that like this. Now we have 3 points of contact, but we will need a 4th. So I'm going to grab this and just kind of draw it out to here. And let's attach these just so visually we can see what's going on. To there and back to there. So now they're attached. This is floating freely right now, but we need it to be attached to the winches, the side winches, and this winch here on the front. So for this, let's attach some anchor points. This may not be ideal here. I think if I put it in a different position, I can probably make it look a little better. So this, and then this one would be attached to here. Okay, so that's the starting point. And then if I put 2 more of these like this, and make each one of these attached to these small winches there. Now the mechanics behind it, from a logical, just thinking logically, not knowing anything about sailing, in theory, I probably could put a winch here. One single winch here, and it will do the exact same trick instead of these two. It'll pull it in, force it here, and push it out. So having these on the side here, looking at these types of sails, the configuration, I've been using kind of a jib sail, but this may be more like a Genoa, where it sort of pushes back and you can kind of put it side to side rather than being fixed to one point on the mast. But regardless, here we are. I have attached the winches to the electricity, and what I need to do now is have the ability to bring the sail in and out, which would be with this one. So this would allow us to bring it all the way forward, and if we pull on these two, it'll actually allow us to bring the sail back. Now, one thing, again, with the configuration that we're using, not having one single winch there, I'm almost thinking that in my instrument panel, when this one here is down, this one here will be up. And when this one here is up, this one will be down. So they counter each other. I can make it go left or right. There's no really need to ever have both of them pulling simultaneously. Of course, that may create a lot of slack in this direction, because we're pulling, say we pull it to this one, we're pulling it here, this direction now has a lot of slack, but it may just be something we kind of have to work with, short of doing a calculation and having it like working in a sense that you set it to pull this in, pull this out up to a certain point. Now, even these guys don't have length. There's no length output, so that would be quite difficult. So I went ahead, added the winches, added their control nodes, and they're kind of daisy chained here. So inside the microcontroller, I actually placed channels 2 and 4 and 1 and 3 to be attached. Now, one thing actually that came to mind is this thing here. I'm sure it has a sailing name, but we're going to call it a thing. I can put it like this. Now, the reason we want it more forward is so the sail's smaller. If I put it too far back, it'll make the sail larger and pick up wind and stuff. Also, let me just check that my constant on is on, so the sails are sort of loose. Again, I'm not sure if it allows me to put it back together after. From what I've saw, it just kind of releases it once and stays. Anyway, that is that, and then we just need that front winch, which is currently not attached to anything, to in fact be attached to something. So we're going to put that there, and it needs its own control panel. So we're just going to steal one of these, and right now we have to jump all over the boat to get this thing to work, which I suppose is realistic, at least more so realistic than purely pressing a button that's here near the helm. Again, I don't know enough about sailboats, and maybe there are some that are more automated and you have buttons or winches and pulleys in this area, but for us, we're going to be jumping all over the boat. Alright, on first glance, things seem to look okay. And now, if we go back to this, and we start to pull this, it should start to move in the direction that I want it to. Okay, the winches definitely have to be sped up. I also removed some of the styling elements here on the front. That will allow this to freely move across the top of the vessel rather than getting caught up in those things. So that is good. You can see that we do have a little bit of our rigs dancing around in the wind, which is less good, but probably more realistic, to be honest, since those are systems that are free to move around. Now we're just going to reposition ourselves here, and I can start to winch up the main sail. That definitely is very satisfying. Using it like that, I really like that. So we still have forward momentum, which is helping us. Once that's at the top there, I'm going to jump over here and start using this. I'm going to winch this in. And actually, as I'm winching this in, I also have to winch... Oops. Don't fall off. Don't fall off. There we go. I'm definitely going to have to winch this out. So the labels may not be accurate, but the point is, this rope here is pulling on this whole contraption. So I have to winch it out a little bit. And then I can go over here and winch this in. Now, if I'm trying to go this direction, I think I do need this winch to be making most of the work, because you want to match the sails, otherwise you're steering. So this on the front, the jib sail, is good for steering and such, but I do want to bring this one in. So we are currently going up. All right, we're getting in position. Nice. Now we are with the wind, so I need to get over here and turn it. Now I could turn the rudder. Also, I can reduce this. I can winch this out, and the only thing with that is it will get caught in the wind. And in this case, I don't want to go on this side of the island. I want to go to the port side of the island, or left of the island. So I'm holding my rudder, my tiller in this case. Let's see. And now, with that being held, if I move this in, can I start to utilize... See, it's still pushing there. So the nice thing with my other systems is I can force it onto the other side, whereas here, now we're kind of stuck, and this is in the direction I don't want it to be. Now this, if I winch it out a little bit, or rather if I winch this out, maybe I can make it billow a little bit and catch some more wind and actually turn us, assuming it goes in the direction I want it to, because right now we're just kind of being tossed around by that wind. And I'm not releasing this winch. If I release this, then what's going to happen is it's going to pick us up whichever side. So like, for example, if I do this and it starts to move in that direction, well, now we're going to be going to the right of the island rather than to the left. So there's definitely a lot more mechanisms here at play, especially if you are using this more manual of a system. So you can see here now, my sail is out over there, and this one is dangling, which isn't good. So I want to bring it in actually. Interesting. I mean, this is definitely not what I'm trying to do here. And something tells me that it's actually rigged up incorrectly. Because not only are we heading at the island at close to 10 knots, we are not steering in the direction I want. Now, yes, I could use the tiller and push us like this, and then what, bring this in. I'm just trying to get ourselves going perpendicular to the wind, rather than just being fully dependent and exposed to it. So if I bring this in like that, and steer, at some point we need this to just get caught and pick up. That is definitely not what I wanted, whatever's happening up there. And I'm sure that the people that are actually advanced sailors and know how to sail can tell me right now what's wrong. And actually, I look forward to it in the comments, because this is quite literally my first approach, or first time trying to rig sails using winches and using a more realistic approach rather than purely just using the pivots. Because the mechanical side of things I understand to an extent. You know, you push the sails to this direction if you want to go in this direction. You kind of use forces to your advantage. You use energy to your advantage. But I suppose positioning the sails is what eludes me, because I can't understand this particular type of system, how to apply it, and how to use the various ropes and winches and things to get it working for us. Because right now I'm using an engine power because that's what I do. I apply engine power. But as far as the wind power is concerned, let's see, like, I cannot get it to push me perpendicular to the wind, because that's what I want. I want to try at least to go perpendicular to the wind, but instead it's steering us. Now it's pushing us in that direction, which is fine, but at some point now everything will move to the other side and it will start to do the opposite. So I feel like we're just flailing around. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this sort of embarrassing trial run of me actually sailing. I'm quite embarrassed, and to be honest, this video feels like an unsuccessful attempt, because what I've done here is anything but successful. In fact, I'm very jealous of that guy over there that's using his nice diesel power and just chugging along while I'm struggling. But anyway, let me know what you think, how much I messed this up. Just a little post-video update, I suppose. I did make the video, record the video of the realistic sailing, and I do appreciate and understand that a lot of you that love sailing are passionate about the realism behind it. I totally understand. And there's obviously users that are more passionate than others, but I did use the comment by OPX, as I mentioned, and I tried to do what I tried. But what is quite interesting, actually, just after I recorded this video, actually, a comment by user Dave C posted that in real life that you wouldn't use a winch, especially the one for the mainsail, I suppose. You'd grab it by hand and yank on it. So you can use winches, but using the winches, as I was, may end up not being the best approach. So, and actually made an awesome and really supportive comment here, saying that, bottom line, this boat has the most manageable method of controlling sails yet, and the closest one to realistic that I found where hauling the sheet by hand doesn't. So I really do appreciate that. Another thing quite interesting is that you're supposed to use the rudder along with the sails. Obviously, yes, you can use the sails for pure control, but the rudder does serve a very important purpose. I did learn that after the fact. I did some further research, and it's for maneuvering, which makes sense. But anyway, the point is, yes, you can use it all kind of ways, but there are things that just are limited, I suppose. Now, other users did say that, yes, you can make it happen. Yes, it does work, which is fine. I do agree with all of them, but I do think that there are certain applications that are probably just easier to kind of be done in a different way if it's close enough to the real world one, but not altogether following that, because ultimately this is not a sailing game. So yeah, you can implement sailing things, but you know, a little bit has to give and take. Ultimately, I'm happy I tried and learned something new, absolutely, but real life doesn't mimic games always, and you may end up in situations where it's easier to do the workaround, I suppose. And not for lack of trying, and not for lack of realism, but just because the general consumer, the person playing Stormworks, is probably okay with abbreviated bursts of reality versus 100% real thing. And my boats actually do replicate that. A real life ship, you don't go and turn a helm key on and start the whole thing up. No, you have to go through a series. You got to prime the engine. You got to have a person in the engine room. I don't go to that level of detail. I make it so it's realistic but fun as well. Funny enough, I recorded my video 10 days ago, and actually 4 days ago, this user Wartrax uploaded this creation, which is my sailboat with realistic rigging. And what's really cool is that it pretty much takes my vessel and applies an independent boom rigging, it applies traditional sailing mechanics, and gives you sort of a more immersive, realistic approach into sailing. Funny enough, very similar to the one that I made in this video 10 days ago. So in parallel, it just so happened we made a very similar thing, and you could see it's already out. So if you are interested in something more realistic such as this, you can definitely subscribe to it. Here it is in the game, and as you'll see that just inadvertently, in parallel, we applied very similar techniques. You do have this mast track and things like that, but man, I am so bad at this. I really think I have to be physically sailing to actually understand how this works, and it is maybe a little bit negative and unfortunate, but it just may be something that needs to be learned practically, that can't be learned just by watching videos and in-game, like all these various winches and things, this thing flailing around. I do prefer my own approach, meaning my own version that is currently released. As unrealistic as it is something that beginners, people that don't know how to sail, can potentially do. And for those of you that are more that are definitely more into this and more experienced sailors, I think that it's nice to have options to your disposal that you could use. But yeah, sailing is definitely a complex art. As I've said time and time again, kudos to all of you that actually know how to sail. Again, being landlocked, I have absolutely no idea other than what I've watched and seen, and I know that may come as a disappointment to some of you, just because I do try my best to put out videos and content and things that can actually help you master and learn, but this is just one that is such an advanced form of art that I probably have to learn how to be on an actual sailboat, tying these things, pulling these ropes, and trying to watch it, explain it, show it like this doesn't really do it any justice. So I do apologize for that. I really feel like I dropped the ball on this one, and I think my version is just a nice simulated approach to sailing versus something that is a simulation of sailing. So mine is kind of the knockoff, if you will, but a knockoff that I'm quite happy with. I really am. So yeah, a bit of a sad ending to this video. I do appreciate this user putting out this boat for those of you that are interested, and you can't say I didn't try. I really did try my best in my own version of the boat. I just prefer the one that is a little easily controlled, and then I can just jump on to other creations and other projects that I have, rather than spending countless hours learning how to sail. I love it, but I'm not like really ready to prepare and invest that level of time trying to get there. So thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video even as much as I didn't enjoy making it, to be honest. It does hurt a little bit to just totally drop the ball and end up with something so weird, and I'm sure people are going to comment all kinds of lovely advice in the comments, do this, do that, but it's gotten to the point where I am prepared to just move on to other projects with my similar abbreviated knockoff, call it, style of sailing, and focus, of course, on the interior, focus on the creations that I love, because end of the day, that is what Stormworks is about. For those of you that want the realistic approach, you can have it. For those of you that want another like a abbreviated knockoff experience where you kind of learn, then you have that as well. So you do have the options, and that is one of the beauties of Stormworks, I think, just the ability to be able to choose if you want to go with the full simulation, or if you're happy with just having something that is more a fun approach, let's call it. On a happier note, you can see here never seen before footage of the newest boat. Yes, it is a cat boat. And actually, I really like catboats because they make it a little easier to use. You just have one sail you have to worry about, but you see here, it is the smallest of all of these. So if you were looking for a big boat, you're not going to get that now. You have a small catboat with a small cabin, but it still has 2 beds. And one thing I really wanted to do with this catboat was to have the keel as part of the hull. It's actually in the hull, allowing me to actually connect this sailboat to a trailer. So stay tuned for this one. It's pretty much complete. We're just finalizing some last minute things, and it will be out for the YouTube members and for the Discord server boosters soon here, and then later on to everyone else. So thank you all for watching. I do want to give a huge shout out, as always, to my YouTube members and my Discord server boosters, and to each and every one of you for watching. Hopefully this video wasn't too painful. It took the course of 2 weeks to make, and finally I'm at peace with not knowing how to sail perfectly. So thank you again, and until next time, happy Stormworksing, everyone.